Welcome to yet another episode in our series of Under the Magnifying Glass, where we are looking at the Herbcrafter's tarot. Today we are looking at fives. Number 5 in tarot can be a very challenging card to get. So let's firstly look at what number 5 represents generally in tarot, and then we are going to dive into each card, where we're going to talk about how I journeyed into each card, and then look also into the guidebook, what it says about each card. And then at the end, we're going to check out the 2 major arcana cards that connect to number 5. So let's start firstly with looking into what 5 represents in tarot. 5 can represent struggle, regret, conflict, loss, unexpected change, fear, transformation, growth, inner strength. It awakens one to worn-out conditioning, relationships, and lifestyles that led us to this point. The ego wants to cling to the familiar ground, even though it has begun to crumble away, and there is an urgency to reevaluate the negative patterns and falsehoods in one's life. The number 5 ultimately guides one to a deeper awareness of one's personal truth and purpose. We overcome the darkness by integrating the shadow of the unconscious with the light and truth of its higher consciousness. The challenge is maintaining the balance of the cross of matter and spirit within the heart and mind. At number 5, one learns what free choices actually mean and how they affect one's life. One learns how to balance the 4 elements of the self within the divine in the physical being. It is a difficult path, but in the end, one gets the reward of spiritual strength and growth, which brings a deep understanding of who one is. Now, in the Herbcrafter's tarot, the 5s represent the plants that are listed threatened or endangered with United Plant Savers. The number 5 represents threat, conflict, and adversity. These plants have been affected by climate change, overharvesting, deforestation, development, and disease. They require specific conditions for growth and are quite difficult to cultivate. Their loss would be devastating to the environment. The challenges that Herbcrafters faces here is larger than herself or himself or themselves. She has created a sanctuary in the forest, but now she sees that the dangers from the outside world can affect her inner world or the world of the plants. The herbs from the 5s confront humanity's relationship with nature. The Herbcrafters becomes aware of how the choices within the domain culture affect the ecosystem. The Herbcrafter wants to stand up for what's the right thing to do. The 5s spark action that leads to community and conservation. Okay, so that was generally about the 5s. And now let's go into each card. So I'm going to tell you what I recognized, what stood out for me, and what I understood in each card. So if you first look at 5 of air, which is white sage. So what I firstly noticed was this knife lying here. And to me, that represents the suit of air, because we know that the bowlines and knives represent the suit. I noticed that the leaves and the bundles of the freshly harvested sage all point in different directions. So to me, that feels like there would be a disagreement in what direction to turn or what direction to go in a person's life at that moment. The amount of sage that was harvested from this plant feels just right, like that the Herbcrafter didn't cut away too much, and that he or they were considerate of the plant and how much is it okay to take. 2 bundles here are wrapped with a red string, and 3 of them are loose, and that is a big association with the Rider-Waite-Smith picture. And then I noticed that the door is red and the string thingies are red as well, which brings me association of fire, of passion. It brings the fiery feel to the picture. Then I noticed that there is a basket here, and the baskets to me always represent the connection to the past and the future, like the tool was weaved in the past and then it lasts for the generations to come, so past and future. So perhaps bringing forward your ancestral traumas or knowledge into the situation which will influence how you react. Be mindful of what is going to help your situation or not help your situation, or even worsen the situation. So the future depends on how you act in this moment. I know that sage is used for smudging and clearing out space and air. So the message here for me is clear out what is not needed so you can approach your situation in the best way possible that will benefit everyone included. I noticed that the floor is made of concrete, which in me triggers a cold feeling, and then the door and strings are red, which triggers in me a warm feeling. So contrasts, differences, oppositions, opposites, so that might be at play here. So different opinions and stuff like that, which I will then later connect to another card as well from the Major Arcana. And now if we look at the guidebook, it says, the 3 points first say, long-held beliefs might not be rooted in reality. Refuse to go along with the crowd. Believe the threatened and oppressed ones. Because we know that the sage is the oppressed plant, right? The plant here is small and strong, it says. The home is old, but well cared for, and no leaves will be wasted. Everything that was cut away will be used. It speaks about how white sage has become a trendy spiritual tool, when in fact it is sacred to many of the indigenous peoples of North America, whose traditions are widely misused. And I love that they talk about this here because it is highly important. The plant is threatened by erosion and development too. White sage is teaching us to protect what is holy. It rids the air of toxins, but it also is a valuable medicine. So to me, that means to clear the path and listen to others and make room for healing. Seek solutions that are beneficial to all. So here I think is a connection to sage being trendy and misused by people. A spiritual crisis challenges long-held beliefs. And I was thinking maybe that's to do with the basket, long-held beliefs, because it comes from the past. Though your conscience pulls at you, you are reluctant to let go of your opinions. So I was thinking about the red color here, that fiery kind of stubbornness. So the red and white as well. So red and white that I was mentioning before, the oppositions, that battle within your mind. So rise to the challenge and accept the truth. And I love here that in the guidebook, like I mentioned before, that they talk about certain cultures using indigenous people's sacred tools in a very ignorant ways. I think this is a big problem, and lots of people from Western society make money based on the teachings that don't come from their own culture. And then it also talks about how in the crafting, let's just go to crafting because it mentions that. So familiarize yourself with the origins of your spiritual tools, where the botanicals are grown and where the practices come from. So if you're using the sage, at least familiarize yourself, learn about where it comes from, what is the history. And even better, get to know plants local to you for burning in sacred rituals of your own making. So basically they're subtly telling you, instead of buying someone else's sacred tool, why don't you go around your house and around your area and find the plants that can be used in the similar or even the same way and have the same effect, which I think is brilliant. It makes a person stop and think, and reassess their habits, reassess their beliefs, reassess their thinking. And I think it's just so important and amazing that they wrote this down here. And then the last point is, listen to the conservationists. Support United Plant Savers' efforts to persevere this plant. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. This card is so important in this deck. I think it, here it says at the beginning of the guidebook that in the fives, the Herbcrafter stands for what is right. And this card beautifully demonstrates that. Okay, let's move now to Five of Fire, Black Orhosh. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly because I'm not familiar with this plant. But my observations and my feels about this scene were, I firstly noticed the red door or wall behind, and it reminds me of fire because it's red, obviously. So I knew automatically this must be a fire suit because of that. Although it might not be completely obvious at first, because we know that the fire scenes are the ones that are very active, right? But we will get to that. So I noticed that the plant's blossoms look like sparkles, which create busyness of the scene. Therefore, this speaks of the fire suit. Okay, we came to the realization much closer than I thought. I wrote it down. Okay, so then we have red and green. And if you know anything about the color schemes and colors in general, you would know that red and green are the opposite colors, right? So this again speaks about opposition, about disagreement that might be at play. The white flowers look like they're all trying to reach for this star here. So we have left, right, and the middle. And they're all coming together to reach the star. And that might be a Rider-Waite-Smith reference, perhaps, you know, when there are different people fighting for something on the picture. So they're trying to get to the same thing, which is the star. Also with the green, I associate it with calmness and grounding, and red with passion and anger and fire. So there might be a need to find a balance between these two. Again, we're talking about balance, which we will come to one of the major arcana cards later. The white flowers feel like they are bubbling up. It feels like they're bubbling up, and perhaps this is the rage or the anger that is bubbling up within us. And now if we refer to the guidebook, it says the first 3 points are: anger is sacred. Burn through the slumber of helplessness and complacency. Resist. And then woman's rage is a force that will change the world. I love that. It talks about red brick wall, white flowers bursting from a deep crown looking like sparkles, which is something that I noticed as well. I wrote bubbling up. Honor the fire that rises up within. Neither deny your anger or let it rule you. So find that nice balance. Don't deny it, but don't let it rule you, right? Again, we're talking about balance here. Discern if your rage is rooted in fear or insecurity, or if it is righteous. Again, discerning, finding that balance. The tincture of the plant supports female reproductive system, easing pain and releasing stuck fluids from the body. I didn't know this about this plant, which is very cool, and that's why they're talking about women power. The plant teaches us to harness the power of our own creative source. The tall flower bends easily when it's windy, so learn how to cultivate a strong yet flexible backbone. Again, that balance, being strong but also flexible, so staying strong in difficult situations perhaps. The folk name for this plant is called snake root, and it signifies transformation. Rattle like a snake and shed your skin. I don't know if you know the snake, but yeah, it does rattle its tail at the end to distract the, not victim, but you know, the animal that is going to eat, basically. So it's taking its power, right? It's taking its power in its own hands that it has, and it uses it for its benefit. Okay, and then the crafting in the end. Channel your energy into activism. Use the power of this plant's tincture to harness the power of your changing energy shifts, and craft a rattle of power with black kokosh seeds. So you can take the seeds and make a rattle. So it's always a very witchy, like at least one prompt for crafting. It's going to be very witchy and ceremonial. Okay, and let's move to 5 of water. So my observations about this card were, I noticed that the fence here was weaved around the plants. Again, something that talks about maybe past experiences being used or being present in the present. The inside looks, if you look at it, the floor, it looks quite dead and sad. That's the feeling I get, and empty. There's not much going on apart from these plants here. It's very dark, you know. So to me that speaks about opening the gate, opening your heart. I also noticed that the water at the background is flowing, or it feels like it's flowing under the fence. So water, we know, represents emotion. And emotion is really energy in motion, right? It's moving. So let the water bring life and wash away what's not needed. Let it heal you from the deep within. So going deep under, you know, under. The flowers to me look like sparkles, because they're like white and they pop out of this green and this background. And that to me brings association to the star card. Hence the healing. We know that the star card brings hope and healing, right? And again, if we look outside the fence, it's so lush and beautiful and green and full of life. So To me, that speaks about looking outside what is beautiful and what is lush in your life, apart from what is not that nice. There is a lot of green color in this picture, right? So that to me speaks about heart chakra, and hence opening your heart and letting love in. Letting love in and let it heal you. We also see that there's sunshine at the back. It's shining through the branches. So the sunshine is just there if you look. It is not very obvious, but you can notice it at the back. So it is light in the darkness. And now if you look at the guidebook, the first 3 points are: seek out healing waters to ease your pain. A restored heart clears the vision, like was literally the messages I was getting from the card as well. Golden hope dwells deep underground, water underground. So the young plant is thriving but remains vulnerable because of the overharvesting. Grief is necessary part of healing. Allow your feelings to unfold. You may be lost in depression or sorrow. Tea made from golden seal's yellow roots heals mucous membranes, conjunctivitis, wet colds, sore gums, and eczema. So all of these, to me, relate to crying, things buried inside that need to be expressed. You know, eczema, some people say that eczema really means that there's something deep within that is not working and needs to be released, and it's released through the skin. So it's like inflammation, and it comes out through the skin. That there is a deeper problem that is rooted deep within that we need to find in order to really heal eczema. Because if we just put cream on it, the symptoms are better, but the root of the problem is not cured. I'm not a doctor, I'm just saying this based on the things that I've read. My personal opinion again. Okay, so Golden Seal's medicine teaches us that healing can be buried deep within, with the roots and the water coming under. Through sadness, we can open a portal to intuition, so a positive outlook into a devastating situation perhaps. Though you are in deep depths of despair, hope is hidden in the darkness, and a small amount of it is all we need to get by. So these might be, that sun that I was talking about before, or these flowers here. And then for crafting, I'm just gonna read one. So use Golden Seal roots as a wash to soothe inflamed red eyes from exhaustion and crying. How beautiful. I really, really love this card so much. It speaks to me volumes. And then if we go to 5 of Earth. So the first thing I noticed is obviously this big white house that looks a bit worn out, like the paint is falling off. And then we see 2 rocking chairs here, which to me indicate older people. That tells me that one should focus on the fact that they do have a home and shelter, because the storm is coming at the background. Even though the shelter and home might not be perfect, they're still safe. So around the tree, if you look at the plant now, slippery elm, around the tree there is a protection made of weaved type of wood. I wasn't sure what it was until I read it. It's bamboo. The trunk of a tree is therefore protected from harm that might be caused by animals or anything else, and that to me is a reminder that you are protected with the help of others in tricky situation or in crisis. So we also see that there are wind supports in place, and even though life can be tough, which represents wind and animals, one can always find a way to go through hardships. Where there is a will, there is a way. That's how I saw this scene here. We also see that the storm is coming, so something sudden and dramatic or drastic is coming our way. And we need to make sure we are prepared and that we believe we can get through this storm. So it's all about believing and recognizing what we have and using it. Side note, I noticed that there are 5 windows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which to me speaks about, number 5 in this card. And then from the guidebook, we have soothe the pain of those in need. In this case, this tree is in need, right? Even the wounded can heal. You have the skills it takes to survive any crisis. And then it talks about that slippery elm is a medicine used for inflammation and material for baskets. So that's, again, relation to the earthsuit. We know that a lot of weaving arts are in these cards. It is not obviously an earthsuit unless you know this, but it is, nevertheless. Slippery elm is threatened by Dutch elm disease, and all trees eventually become susceptible to it. So the plant teaches us that even in hard times, we have access to our resources if we do not lose faith. You have the skills to protect what remains and make it through the crisis. And that is literally the same feel that I got from this picture. Then it talks about creating a warm and comforting place to hold up while our situation improves. Economic and physical hardship may cause stress, take us by surprise, and reduce vitality. So this could be the storm, right, and the animals that can harm this plant. And then for crafting, I chose take a slippery elm, lozenges, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, is Lozenges, to soothe a stomach upset by worry and stress, which is, 5 of Pentacles is about that worry and stress and not feeling secure and all that. And now let's go to the major arcana cards that are associated with number 5 here. So we have the Hierophant, which is number 5, and we have Temperance, which is 14. 1 plus 4 is 5. So Cacao and Camellia, which is green tea. I apologize about the situation with the sun. I hope you can see properly. So 5s only become challenging. So I heard this on another channel that I was watching about Tot, and the YouTuber, whose name I'm going to write here because I can't remember at the moment, she talked about that the 5s only become challenging where there is no movement, where there is stagnation. And in the Hierophant card, it is crucial that the knowledge moves from the teacher to the student, who then becomes a teacher and is also a student, and so on and so on. So there's that balance. Again, we were talking about the balance in many of these cards. If the Hierophant only teaches outdated information, then life energy becomes stuck, stagnant. There is no movement, no growth, and then we have a problem. On the Hierophant picture, we see raw cacao, right? And that to me speaks about only raw, true, authentic teacher can help you with your spiritual growth. And we know that 5s are about growth, right? In this case, it is spiritual growth. It could also be knowledge growth. We know Hierophant can also be about knowledge. So one with find a teacher that has an open heart. What cacao does is it increases blood flow. And again, with the blood flow, there is that movement that is needed in the 5s. We need that movement to not get stuck, so the challenges move, right? So that we grow. That is needed for that growth. And then this blood and blood flow, to me, triggers association with the heart. Like I said, a teacher with an open heart, with an open mind, that is willing to learn new things and willing to adapt to current situations in the world. So in the guidebook, it then says that it is also important to take time with your growth. So too much cacao too quickly can cause the pulse to quicken, and therefore learning too much too fast can overwhelm us. We know that 5 is about transformation, which Hierophant offers us, right? Through the teaching, through the movement of knowledge. 5s also awaken you to worn out conditioning, and the Hierophant can either be the cause for it, or it can be the reason for this revelation. Through 5s, we develop spiritual strength, again Hierophant, and the growth which brings us a deep understanding of who we are. I think it's absolutely brilliant how they chose cacao for this specific card, because we know about I know about the cacao ceremonies and how it is a very spiritual, at the moment it's quite trendy, I'm gonna say, but it is a spiritual ceremony. And now if we go to the Temperance card, which I found very interesting. So we know that Temperance is about balance, and here in this card we're talking about balance so much before, so much. It's absolutely brilliant how they've done that. So the Temperance is also about blending the opposites together to make something new. So on this card, we take the tea, right, which is earth, blend it with water that was boiled by fire, and then cooled down by air. How cool is that? So we have all the elements came together to blend to create something new. I find that so interesting. 5s allow us to overcome the darkness by integrating the shadow of unconscious with the light and truth of the higher consciousness. And here we have, artistically looking, we have dark and light on one side, and again here darker and lighter. How cool is that? So blending and mixing of both unconscious and conscious, dark and light in us. Temperance is also, like I said before, about balance, and we have balance of colors here, dark and light colors, and it's perfectly balanced. not only from the artistic perspective, of course, but also the leaves on one side are fresh, on the other are dry. And on one side we have closed tea, opened tea. There's so many different things. On one side we have leaves that are not yet tea, right? On the other they are tea. So going both ways, crossing over tea leaves, teacups, teapot, there's dried tea leaves. So we have all this crossing over of different things. To dry the tea leaves, we need the heat and air as well, which is again meant association to the elements, right? To bring the elements in. And then also it can be challenging maintaining the balance of crossing the matter, so let's say physical here, physical tea, and spirit within. So knowing when to take the leaves out of the tea before it becomes bitter. So if you drink the tea, you will know this. If you leave the leaves in for too long, the tea becomes bitter and it's not very nice to drink. So is that knowing when it's enough. Again, that balance, that discernment. In the guidebook, it then speaks about how focusing on the present moment brings balance to the opposite forces. And what better way to do this than with a cup of mindful tea ceremony? Because, you know, you can make creating a tea mindful ceremony. And green tea, it says in the guidebook, strengthens the heart. And then again we have this connection to the Hierophant here with the heart, right? So beautiful, so beautiful. And yeah, it's just perfect the way they've done this. What a beautiful way to talk about fives in tarot. It's just absolutely perfect. I think this is my favorite, these are my favorite fives in all the tarot decks that I have. This 5 just represent the meaning of number 5 so beautifully, and they connect it together just in such a magnificent alchemical way. I don't know how to explain this, but yeah, it's just so wonderful. So yes, these were the cards associated with number 5 in our episode 5. Next week we are going to look at number 6's and number 6 and the cards associated with this number. Please write in the comments below if you found out something new, learned something new today. If you see something else that I haven't seen or noticed, please write it down, because I would love to read your comments. And you know, we are learning from each other. Everyone brings something to the table. I hope you have a wonderful day or evening or night or whatever time is where you're watching this. And I will see you again soon. Bye bye.